Hi there. Welcome to the Playing in the Sandbox podcast. I'm Tammy J. Bond, your host. And at the Playing in the Sandbox podcast, y'all know we are deeply committed to inspiring action in today's leaders. And today it's going to be a fun one because we have finished out 2023 and we're getting ready to break into, step into 2024. And before we do that, I wanted to share with you some of the questions that we get from listeners all over the country that are in the sandbox with us every other week. They're listening in and they're getting tips and tools and strategies on how to lead themselves and their teams better. And they're sending questions with those situations, those predicaments, those challenges that they find themselves in that they just can't find a way to solve. Well, friend, I'm going to actually share those questions with you. And you get to listen in to hear how I would come in and solve them with the team like I love to do every day in the work I get to do in the world. So listen into today's episode. I know you're going to find some great tips. In fact, I want to encourage you to grab a pen and paper and write down 1, 2, and 3 and be ready to be focused on getting 3 tips that you can apply in your leadership today to transform your team in the new year. I'll see you in the sandbox. All right, so now that you've stepped into the sandbox, you kicked off your shoes, you're digging your toes in, we're getting in and we're going to get deep into some content today all around the questions that listeners have been sending in over 2023. Just a few of them. We handpicked some of the best questions so that we could actually kind of role play them, if you will, with you live here in the sandbox and give you the tools, help you to see the way you can navigate these very same situations. You know, you've heard me talk about the characters in the sandbox, and coming in 2024, we're actually expanding those characters. We're adding to it. When I wrote my book, Playing in the Sandbox 10 years ago, I introduced 4 characters, and now we're expanding them into almost double that number because the reality is you have these behavior patterns that show up every day in your workplace and they impact your ability to get work done. So some of them are in the questions. You're going to hear it in the questions that people have sent in that I'm going to answer live here for you today. And I'm hoping that it's going to inspire some thought and some creative momentum for you on how to address whether you have a Harriet the Hoarder, if you have a Nick the castle kicker, a Johnny the sand thrower, you know, whomever you have, and we've got some new characters coming in 24 you're going to get introduced to so that you can understand how to better navigate those personalities. Because remember, we want to address behaviors, but it's important that we understand the personality that we're dealing with too, so that we can really get to the root cause of the behaviors that we're dealing with in the sandbox. So let's get into some of these questions. I'm so excited to share them with you. I know you're going to find them to be fun and super, probably eye-opening, right? Super eye-opening for you. So here's one that I found, I guess probably one of my favorites of all times, right? It actually comes from Janice in Jacksonville, Florida. So, hey, Janice, I'm glad that you sent us in this question. So Janice goes on to explain that, you know, we've got year-end budget due soon, and she's having some challenges with a few other project managers not submitting their info right on time. Like she's the one that's the keeper of everything to put the final budget in place, and she's not getting, people aren't meeting the due dates, bottom line, right? Anybody had that happen by a show of hands? Probably. Well, it's one for her that happens every year. And it's her responsibility to get all of this information collected. And the challenge is for Janice, she's going, I don't want to point fingers at people. My peers or, you know, other managers are supposed to be getting this in. And gosh, I don't want to out anybody, right? So how do I get everyone, and I quote, in line is the question. So let me start by saying this, Janice, it's not your job to get everyone in line. It's actually your boss's job to help cast vision with you on how it is and on how this is going to go. And by whens are clearly established, and the what happens if. It's a, if not this, then what happens if they don't or when they don't meet those. And if this is a consistent problem that you're having year over year with the same cast of characters, then what you want to do is actually sit down with them and say, so team, here we're going into the end of your budget. What's going to be different this year to ensure that we meet our timelines? Because when you don't meet your timeline, behavior, when you're procrastinating to get things done, it actually impacts me on being able to get what I need done for the end of the year. But you see, Janice, it's not just you, it's actually your boss as well. And Janice, if you are the buck stops here, right? You're the end all be all for all these team members that aren't complying, if you will, with their timelines and due dates that you've put out or that they've committed to, then the issue isn't them, it's actually you as the leader. So we want to reflect the mirror back on ourselves and say, what can I do differently the next time? Or what do I need to stop? What behavior do I want to interrupt? What's that pattern interrupt we want to put in place so that we can get people in alignment toward the same vision and goal. It's not about getting everyone in line. Let me be clear. Alignment is different than getting everyone in line. Everyone in line is an aspect of control. Bringing alignment to the team is casting vision, and that's what you want to do. And you want to help people understand the impact of the behaviors if they don't or when they don't, so that they get the clarity of why it's important. And then, it comes right down to take bold actions and make bold requests, but do it quick and swift. That if you've cast vision up front, Janice, you set the expectations clearly up front of what you're needing from people, and you set proper check-ins with people to have them let you know how they're tracking, you're going to do great. You're going to get there. Behavior change takes time. And the most important thing to remember, and this is a behavior change that you're wanting to put in place with a consistent behavior pattern in your team, you want to model it and hold the expectations and be consistent with having those check-ins so that people know what the expectation is, right? They're going to see that fallout in alignment, getting you what you want. Pointing fingers isn't a bad thing. And let me say that for the good for everyone, because there's actually several questions that came in throughout the year from people that are like, oh, I don't want to point fingers. I don't want to throw someone under the bus. I'm not sure how to expose this. I don't think the boss sees it because this staff member is a fan favorite. Well, pointing out the behavior, remember, pointing out the behavior is key, and taking it off the person. If the behavior is impacting the performance, and we want to talk about the behavior that's impacting the performance, it doesn't matter if it's Joe or Sandy or Andre or Jose, whoever it is, we don't actually even need to say who necessarily it is, but you might go and say, you know what, Jose and Andre both have these behaviors that we're seeing, and I'm wondering what we can do to correct them, because these behaviors are having this impact. That's not pointing fingers, that's pointing out the obvious, and everybody sees it. So why do we shy away from that? I was just on a call the other day with a leader who was challenged with actually keeping people, not people, a person uh, accountable, and they actually said, well, I don't give them any extra work because they don't complete the basic work that they have, so I'm constantly flooding other team members with the work that, instead of dividing it equally or semi equally. And I said, well, why are you doing that? Well, because they just won't get it done, so then I'm just frustrated. So how about you set up more meetings and have a 20-minute check-in every day, or have a 20-minute check-in 3 times a week, or at minimum 2 times a week with this individual to see how they're doing. Oh, I don't have time for that. But you have time to think through all the assignments that you're giving out to other people. How's that make sense? Right. So we make workarounds instead of, oh, I don't want to hold that person accountable, or I don't want to point fingers and point out what they're doing is wrong. No, what they're doing and the behavior that they're exhibiting is impacting your ability to be successful and the team's ability to grow. So if that's something you're comfortable with, keep doing it. If it's not, then it's not about the team not doing it. It's about you as the leader not narrowing in on the changes that you get to make. So that was a fun conversation for me to have this week. I love these questions, and I hope that was helpful for you, Janice. I gave you a little bit of extra full color. I brought out the full box of 64 crayons for that one. So this next question came in from Peter from Federal Way, Washington. And I love my West Coast people, formerly from the West Coast, but I am a fan favorite of living in Florida. So I'll just set that right there. But Peter he was recently hired on as an office director it doesn't matter where, medium-sized company. And it's his first time with so much responsibility of people. And he, as so many of you I know, has been gifted the opportunity of inheriting employees on the team, not picking the team, but inheriting the team. And he inherited a longtime employee who It's clearly they do the bare minimum to get by, as the message the message went from Peter. And it's someone who does, since day one, absolutely the bare minimum, and worse, is moody, coarse, and generally very difficult for others to work with, and really unwilling to even meet halfway in the middle. And what's interesting for Peter, being new in this position and new with this much leadership, they see the problems. He sees the challenge with this employee. But what they see in the complacency is also a fear of, they have a fear of, if they take direct action, or they might, write the person up or even potentially let the person go, that could actually cause a morale issue with the rest of the team. The experience of this individual, her experience is a huge asset. So she's got a lot of institutional knowledge, and she's coasting. She's become very complacent, and it's impacting. And so he's wanting to know, as a new leader, what do I do to turn this person around? Well, the most important thing is to focus on what is everybody doing that's right. And then how do you build a one-on-one relationship with this individual on your team that is complacent? And name it. Here's what I've noticed. Here's what I'm seeing that's complacency. That's how I would label it. I'm curious, what motivates you? What inspires you? I want to ask the staff member this. I want to get underneath, because I've seen it before where we will have someone who seems complacent in the workplace, and for good reasons. Maybe they are, because they've put ideas out there that have been shut down, because they've had creative ways to retool or examine or reassess a problem or a project, right? Or how to equip the team different to get different results. And they've brought these forward. And maybe, Peter, you've inherited a team that the previous leadership that they had didn't have the ability to listen to any creative ideas. And so now you're coming in and you're seeing somebody who's moody and coarse and who does the bare minimum, because in their mind it very well could be a why bother, because you're just going to shut me down anyways. Or maybe this individual thought they should have your job you got promoted into. We don't know. But when you ask me the question about what do I do to turn her around, the simple answer is you have a conversation with her. Tell me about how long you've been here. Tell me about what you love about it. Tell me about your experience and why you chose this field. What is it that motivates you to stay here? What's kept you with this company for this long? You have such a great, vast amount of institutional knowledge. I'd love to see how we could get you to share it with others. How would you like to do that? Do you want time at a team meeting once a month where you're sharing some of your institutional knowledge, your experience, right? Engage the individual in what's possible for them to be more of an asset. And you'll probably start to see 9 times out of 10, you're going to start to see them turn around and come onto your side. And they, quite honestly, maybe they're just grumpy and complacent and they really don't want to do any different. They want to be in that duck and cover mode and they're good. Maybe. But then you get to make bold requests from that once you've identified it. But until, Peter, you have the conversation about why this person is where they are, what motivates them, what inspires them, getting into that intrinsic motivation for them, then, you're not going to make any changes. But do yourself a favor, sit down and have a couple of conversations, maybe take the person out for coffee or lunch, and have some dialogue and build relationship, because you don't know what their experience was with the person or people that came before you in that same role, especially if they have been there for a while or a long while. They've got experience that is tripping them up, and it's your job to crack the code. I hope that was helpful, Peter. Thank you so much for submitting your question. And if you want to follow up to that, I want everyone to hear, all y'all got to do is just message me on Instagram, DM me, go into LinkedIn, send me a message as well. Tammy J. Bond, I'm out there. You're going to find me. And I want you to message me your question or your follow-up question to any of these things. It's the best way to get me questions. All right, let's see. My next question. This one, I always love it when people are afraid of hurting someone's feelings. I don't love it. from the perspective of I don't want you all to try to just set out to hurt people's feelings. But Ronald from Atlanta sent me in, sent a message to me, DM'd me, and this and gave me this brief. And here it is. I work in a software development firm. It's Cubicle Nation. Woohoo! My cubicle neighbor has the worst body odor. I read this. I was like, okay, I'll help. Um, he says, it's super gross. I've mentioned it to management and HR and they do nothing. Well, the same reason that they do nothing is probably the same reason you haven't yet. But I love your question that we're going to get to. They don't have to deal with it every single day. It's just not right. I do, right? Okay. I think it's my job to say something. I don't know that it's your job, but it's certainly an opportunity, Ronald, for you to say something. So the question is this, friends: how do I say what I need to without hurting his feelings? Okay. I am pretty sure there are people that are chuckling as you're listening to this right now. You're like, oh, yeah, I've had that happen before. Oh, yes, we've, you know, my husband worked in an environment at one point where they were like, y'all can't bring any leftover fish and cook it in the microwave or heat it up in the microwave because it stinks. No one got offended by that. They all just knew, okay, we've been told can't do that. Body odor's the same way. Hey, friend, I'm just not sure that you're aware, but I'm aware. And do you want some recommendations on deodorant? I've approached it that way. I've approached it with a very gentle conversation, not in the cubicle where anybody can hear. I've approached it with asking if HR would have a conversation with me with the individual. I like that idea, to sit down and say, could you and I sit down with HR and just have a conversation? It's nothing big. I just have something on the personal level I want to talk to you about. Again, going to go back to situation, behavior, impact. I can smell you, friend, over the cubicle wall, and it actually is distressing to me in my workday. And I don't want to be rude. And my intention is not to hurt your feelings. I just want to bring an awareness to it. And then you can have that. The other thing is, you absolutely can hold HR more accountable and responsible for the job of HR, which is to have those difficult conversations. So you don't need to be the one across the cubicle wall trying to have that conversation. So hold HR to the fire, if you will, hold their feet to the fire to have them have that conversation, because it's distressing, concerning, and certainly getting in the way and impacting your work. And if they won't handle it themselves, then you put it on HR to ask you how it is that they would like you to address it, because it's impacting negatively your work environment. And you know that HR wouldn't want your work environment to be negatively impacted because they were unwilling to handle an issue with another employee that was negatively impacting the environment for all. I so promise you, if you say that to them, they're going to give you solutions, or they're going to say, we'll handle it. And then you get to ask the great by when question, right? And then you get to follow up with HR in an email. They'll love you for that. And it's not because you're being mean to HR, you're holding HR. It's an HR issue. They should be the first ones to have it. If you want to have it yourself in a fun way, if you can, great. I know in one environment, this was many years ago, actually a few of the people got together and put together a little basket, and it had deodorant and soaps and even colognes that they liked, and they snuck in and set it on the person's desk. And everybody was quiet. Nobody knew who did it, but the individual got the hint. Okay. So, yes, you could be passive and do it that way, or you put it back on HR. Let's remember this, though. This is what I loved about this question. How do I say what I need to without hurting his feelings? I cannot guarantee that what you need to say is not going to hurt somebody's feelings. But I do believe that when we go in with the right heart and the right attitude and the right intention, my intention is not to hurt your feelings, friend. My intention is to clean up the airspace in our work environment. So I just want to bring your attention to the body odor. It's really becoming a challenge. We don't know if this person, let's say their name is Joe, we don't know if Joe has something personal going on. Joe could be living in their car. Joe could have a medical issue. Joe could have a wife or a partner with cancer, and they're all they can do, or a child, raising my hand, with mental illness that you're working with on a daily basis. And maybe Joe the last thing they have the time for or can really think about is how to do their own laundry or take showers and put on deodorant. It could just be a block for them because of all the other stuff. We don't know that. That's why, again, this most um, really should be, I don't want to say should, it is best placed with HR to handle. But you also can ask Joe, hey, Joe, how's family life? Tell me how home is. And they might start to open up, and then you're going to understand. And once you kind of get into that friend level with Joe, you can probably slip it in of, I bet it's really challenging to even remember do things like laundry and taking a shower. But I just, friend, your body odor is quite offensive in the office, and I want you to be aware of it because I don't want somebody to say something and hurt you. That is not going to offend Joe. That's going to be relational for Joe. And even if no matter what, that's really a great way. But again, I'm going to go back to HR. They should be the ones to handle it first. I just did that. I did two shoulds in that. And I always say, don't should all over yourself, but put HR in charge. But thank you for sending that in, Ronald. And don't be afraid to say what you need and just lead from heart. When we can, this is my other point, friends, when we can look at a situation and we're worried if we have a fear about offending or hurting someone, the best thing we can do is make a list of what it is that we want to say, what it is that what our intention is, the why behind it, what we're hoping for as a result of it, and we get our heart in check first before we approach. And then you can come up with your 3 bullet points or your 2 bullet points that you want to address. It doesn't really need to be any more than that. But first, you want to get really clear with your why and the what of it. And then the how will come, right? But you want to be clear on your why first. And that way it softens you for those bold conversations. All right. I love that question. Okay. Let's go. Oh, still in Georgia. We're going to Athens, Georgia now. Mr. Garrett, thank you so much for reaching out. Garrett's connected, reached out through LinkedIn. So here's what Garrett shared. We have this guy, let's call him Jay. To him, his opinions and expertise are far greater than anyone else's. Oh, I've worked with a Jay, but several. He gets loud in meetings, probably gets destructive too, doesn't he? He talks over people, so interrupter, right? The constant interrupter. He regularly tells people they don't know what they're talking about, they don't know what they're doing. He says, I could run this company without any of you. Oh, I know this person. Yes, I do. Our director spoke to him privately, so Jay has toned down a bit, but there's always that 1 tier 2. That's the question. But he's still super toxic. Well, yeah, because he's been toxic, so people automatically are assuming he's going to be continuing to be so. Some of the crew just stay quiet when he's around. They don't want to talk, they don't want to engage, they just head down. I'm ignoring that he's even in this space, right? Is this fixable or is it time to file a formal complaint? Well, listen, Garrett, if the director's already spoken with him and the behavior's toned a bit, that's great. I would offer a conversation first over this. We'll call Joe, Donnie the Destroyer. We'll call him the destroyer in the workplace because it's like that Tasmanian devil that spins around. You remember that old school cartoon? It's like that. They come in and they spin, and they're spinning for multiple reasons. And it's up to the director to identify what the reasons for the spin are. And the spin come in all shapes and forms in this negativity, talking over people. I would offer that you go to your director and say, can we set up ground rules for our meetings? And then what will we do when Jay talks over people? Because everyone's staying quiet. And then we're going and having meetings after the meetings because nobody wants to talk when Jay's in the room because he just talks over people, shuts people down, and because he walks all over everybody and just like constantly creating this turmoil and chaos. One of the most challenging personalities I think to deal with is this destroyer personality because they sit with that I can do it better than anyone, right? I am king of the universe and I don't need any of you to get it done. Great. So put it on Jay to do all the work. What would that look like? Talk to your director about some solutions, some creative solutions. And I would even go to your director and say, I'm really trying to avoid filing a formal complaint because I know that you're managing this or you're trying to manage to this personality. But I'd like to come up with some solutions, maybe some tactics that we can do as a team to help put Jay in the place of collaborator and not destroyer, right? Someone who is a co-worker, not a uh it's not even a because they're just independently destroying things. They're just out to do that. And I think when you can go to your director, I know when you go to your director and have that conversation, again, you're going to identify their level of commitment to solving for the problem, because there are probably people that aren't producing at the level that they could be. There could be turnover. There's a whole bunch of things that happen. And those after the meetings are really a challenge when you're dealing with a person like Jay in that destroyer mentality, because they are continuing to think, well, I got my word in, I said what I needed to say, and everybody sat quiet, so they agree with me. So we're now confirming and affirming the very negative behaviors that we don't like in the workplace. So talk to your director, find out what you can do to help speak up and to help bring some framework to how we're going to course correct the behavior in Jay. And I'd make the bold request to your director to have a bold conversation with Jay about the behaviors that you want to see changed. And when the next time Jay says something, I could run this company on my own. Really? How would you do that, Jay? What would that look like? Ask him. And he'll tell you. He'll probably tell you, really, how's that going to work? And what's going to happen when you're going to lose all the team? Because you won't have supports. And right now you think you can run it on your own, but there's a lot of people doing a lot of parts of the job you don't know how to do, Jay. So what are you going to do then? And then you sit and you just let Jay sit with that for a minute. And you're probably thinking, why would I do that, Tam? Well, friend, because I want to expose to Jay that they are not the Lone Ranger able to do all these great things that the rest of the team is doing. And Jay's just spewing negativity everywhere. They don't have the skill sets to do all of the alls. And I want to expose that to Jay, because that helps them to get in line. And then you hold the director to the changes that you want to see made with Jay's behavior. But y'all speak up, stand up. And you know what? If you need to file a formal complaint, file a formal complaint. And Jay won't know that it comes from you, but it also, you got to know, is HR willing to take on a Jay? Because there's a lot of times, and depending on Jay's position, that destroyer personality doesn't actually get taken on and addressed because of, it could be for fear. It could be because of what, they might bring into the workplace that you're not aware of, because you're just caught up in the backlash of all the negative behavior patterns. So speak up, own it, say what you need. Who are you not to? Otherwise, Jay's just going to be that Tasmanian devil spinning throughout the workplace. And you know what? You get to decide whether you stay in that or not. But Jay's not going to change if nobody holds Jay up for it. So be the one to make the change, Garrett. You got this. All right. Oh my goodness. 3 more to go, guys. I'm so excited about this. Alan from Orlando. Shout out to Orlando. I feel like I have to be directly supervising the staff at all times. If I'm not around, work isn't getting done. Micromanage much, Alan? I'm wondering. Are you that person? Let's see what else Alan has to say. I have to constantly ask for reporting from supervisors, which is almost always overdue. Okay, I see where you're at. We've had meetings, pizza parties, catered lunches, offsite gatherings to no avail. Well, why are you having celebrations if people aren't doing their work, Alan? Why would you? What's that for? What are you hoping to get out of that, friends? Just think about that. If you have underperformers on your team, promoting and celebrating them continuously, then what do they know that they're not doing, or how do they think that their performance is impacting you negatively because you're celebrating them, right? Now, Alan thinks that the CEO is questioning his ability to lead, but it's not my fault. Famous last few words. It is actually. If the CEO is questioning, now the if, it sounds, it's a big if because you haven't had the conversation with the CEO. So what makes you think that, Alan? I'm going to ask you that boldly, and I want you to think about that. If you're questioning, if your leader is questioning your ability to lead, then you want to be having a conversation of why you feel that way. Hey, it feels like you're questioning my ability, and here are the 3 reasons why I believe that. Not it's just a feeling, but I've seen it because you've done these 3 things. Identify what the specifics are that are causing you to have concern about being questioned in your abilities by the CEO or by your leader. Saying that it's not your fault, well, actually, if you're supervising the staff and they're still not getting things done, then it is your fault. If you have direct supervision over people and they are not meeting their due dates, deadlines, criteria for the basics of the job, and you're the leader, then it is your fault, if we're going to call it fault. It is your opportunity to create change. So I love what Alan said at the end. Help me course correct, Tammy. Okay, Alan, take out your mirror, hold it up, reflect in the mirror, and start asking yourself some really bold questions. How is it that I'm holding people accountable? What expectations have I set? Is everyone clear on the expectations that I've set? Do they understand the by wins? And by wins of I want things done. Do I have anyone that I want to set up 20-minute check-ins with on a weekly basis or a 2-3 times a week basis to check in on how their patterns of behavior are shaping up to be able to complete tasks on time? Have I actually expressed to the staff, hey, your work isn't getting done, it's an issue, I need to understand what's getting in your way, I want to understand what's holding you up, what's holding you back from performing for the on these things? Your work is overdue, what's going, or you go to give an assignment, better yet, Alan, when you go to give Sally Joe an assignment, you say, Sally Joe, you've got this assignment, here's the expectation for the assignment, here's the by when, and that we need it complete. What resources, Sally Joe, do you need to put in place so that this assignment is not overdue but turned in on time? And my favorite thing, and I know, Alan, you've heard me say this in the sandbox before, I'm going to let Sally Joe know, hey, Sally Joe, if I have to come to you on Thursday at 4 p.m. and your project was due, or this workflow was due by Thursday at 9 a.m. or by Wednesday at 4 p.m. the day before, and I got to come and check in with you, there is a problem. And the likelihood is there's going to be a formal reprimand on that. I don't wish to come to you anymore. My expectation is you're going to come to me and you're going to do a yes, no, renegotiate if you have to, and renegotiate to find out if you can renegotiate the due date, because you're not going to hit Thursday and you know that on Wednesday. I want you to have that conversation, Alan, very boldly with Sally Joe, because when you have that conversation with that individual and you get that clarity in place, you've asked them what resources they need, not what can I do to help you. Let's reframe that, because people who constantly miss deadlines, it's not about what do you need for me to be successful? It's what resources do you need to be successful? What resources do you want to put in place so that you are not going to be overdue or late on this assignment? You want to bring the awareness to Sally Joe. You want to bring the awareness to the people that are constantly late. Now, let's go back to the very beginning where you said that you have to be directly supervising the staff at all times. Okay, that's a curious one for me. Why? Is it really just because they're not turning things in on time? Or is it your own fear factor of the what if they don't turn it in on time? I would start going through a list of all the assignments that you've given with the by wins that they're due. And I would start having little tally marks of who's late and who's on time. How many times in a week is somebody late with an assignment? It could just be the fear. It may not actually be happening unless you've actually taken the time to say and write it out. Okay, I've given 14 assignments this week, and really, actually, only one of them was late, and it totally made sense because the internet went down. I don't know. It could be that simple, friend. But we think, oh my goodness, I can't have anybody be late because if it's late, it's a direct reflection on me and my responsibility. And it's going to negatively reflect to the CEO, who I'm pretty sure is questioning my ability to lead, though they've never actually told me that. Do you see? We spin this out, and I'm talking fast. And that's how it goes in our head even faster. So stop the storytelling in your head, friend. Stop the creative storytelling. Get clear on what it is, get clear on the who and how many, and start having direct and bold conversations. And start with going to the CEO and saying, hey, I am struggling with this. Could you help me with? And then ask the CEO for help. Help with understanding, are you questioning my ability to lead? Where do you see my strengths in leadership are? And where do you see my fail points are? Because I'm wanting to improve, because I know I'm having a hard time with staff getting things turned in on time. Your CEO is going to be there to help problem solve with you. It's a 5-minute conversation, maybe a 7-minute conversation, but you got to be willing to have it, Alan. And if you're not willing to have it, then the problem isn't with the people. The problem is reflecting back in that mirror, and it's YOU. Okay, you've got this. How do you course correct? Just go through that little checklist I just gave you. Push repeat, rewind, and listen to this again, Alan. You've got it. I know you can do it. All right, Dylan from South Carolina, Charleston, beautiful Charleston, South Carolina. Oh, first job out of college. I now supervise a crew of 20 at a major hotel. Woohoo! Nothing like getting thrown into the fire. Nice job, Dylan. Clearly, you have leadership skills. Their leader has been with them for more than 10 years. They gravitate to him. He does all and knows all. I can't get them to follow my leadership. Okay, but wait, is it their leader? Okay, I know you had quotes around their leader. So their old leader has been there. Or is it the person? This is a tricky one, and you're not here on the call with me to be able to ask this follow up question to. But people will follow the leader that gives the clarity of direction and the path forward that they're looking for. So remember that. So they're following this person, and you can't get them to follow your leadership. The work is getting done, but I have little to do with my team's success. They don't even come to me when there's a problem. Well, no, because you haven't made yourself available that you're a problem solver yet. They go straight to my boss, he says. Okay, all right. So, Dylan, that's probably a little uncomfortable for you, right? So, what am I doing wrong? Great question. I don't know that it's that you're doing anything wrong. So, let's reframe our thinking. What I think it might be, Dylan, is that you're actually doing something that is maybe not at its best. And what do I mean by that? We haven't set up the clarity of what your team can expect from you. And the team has a relationship with this other person. And, first job out of college, people are questioning what's your skills? What are you able to do and provide for them? You're young. They've been doing this forever. And now you've got all these 20 people that you're managing, and you've never done this kind of work before. They've done it, and they're going to the people that they know, like, and trust. So you just haven't done the age old of building the know, like, and trust factor with the people. And it's going in to say, look, I know I'm new on the job. I know that I am just out of college, and it doesn't matter what my experience is, because you all have an amazing amount of experience that I want to hear from. And I want to know what lights you up, what makes you passionate, and why you do this job. What makes you want to be here? And how can I be a resource for you or of service to you? So here's a key. When they go, so you're going to have a conversation also with your boss, and you're going to make a bold request that when people come to him or her and say, here's my problem, here's my challenge, and they've gone around you to go to your boss, you're going to have the conversation with your boss and ask your boss to redirect them back to you, and or ask your boss to call you in for that conversation as well. And maybe for a while, you do have your boss sit in on some of the meetings with your team, not to be a contributor, but to be a silent observer, so that the confidence that they have in you builds, because um, by way of transfer from your boss, they're going to transfer their trust in you, because they're the ones that hired you into the position. So they see your potential. So we want a transfer of that confidence that the boss has in you to the rest of the team. And the way you can do that is by including the boss in some of those meetings, but also asking the boss to redirect the team members back to you with the question. And that simply is so did you take this question to Dylan? And what was the question that Dylan gave you? And the more that the boss does that, and then that's it, and just says, oh, well, go check in with Dylan, because I know Dylan will have a great answer for you. And they don't give the answer, that's actually going to set you up for greater success. All right. So you're not doing anything wrong exactly. It's just course correcting your path and building that know, like, and trust factor, having a conversation with the boss to redirect people, having a conversation with the team to redirect people back. And when you hear that Fred went in and talked with your boss, and you find out about that, you immediately call Fred and go into Fred's office and say, hey, Fred, how's it going? Talk to me about, and then tell them exactly what you know the issue is that they took to the boss. Not, hey, I heard you go to the boss and you went and talked to the boss about this issue, and so why don't you tell me about it? No, I'm going to go in and say, hey, Fred, I'd love to hear more about, and then tell them what the issue is, because the boss is going to have told you what that is. Fred's going to be taking notice because you have insider information they weren't thinking that you had. And so we just want to out people in a very respectful manner while you are building the know, like, and trust factor, while you are being a resource to equip people, and you're asking for them to give you information about what lights them up. You see, here's something for all y'all that are those young managers, those young leaders that are fresh out of college or newly out of college, or you're in your first time big management leadership role, and you've inherited a team, right? The best thing you can do is, a lot of times where the fail point happens, is you go in so eager to tell them all you know and to tell them all you've done, but you've done nothing to build relationship. And so they're looking at you like, what are you going to teach me, kid? What do you got that I haven't learned already in the last 20 years of doing this while you were growing up? Right? I promise you, it's not to be disrespectful that they're doing that. It's that that's the reality, because they're questioning, because most of the times, a lot of times, our younger leaders come in so bold and eager, which and excited, which we love, they forget the relational building along the way. And you want to be in relational building mode. That's the biggest thing that you can do with this one, Dylan. You've got this. Just go back to the beginning, start building that know, like, and trust factor, and elicit or engage the help and support from your boss, so that they start directing people back. If they come to them with a problem, they start directing them back to you. It's as simple as that. All right. Woo, here we go. I'm going to give you my last question now. It's Jack from Sacramento, California. This executive, um, this last year, our executive team mapped out their strategies for the fiscal year. And my boss was in those meetings. We were all given assignments to manage the work appropriately. When my department submitted our part, the executive team said, "This is not what we asked for." Yeah, that happens. So we went back to the drawing board, turned in our part again. Execs were displeased again. Okay. The worst part is, my boss said he told us exactly what was needed. And now we look bad and he's shifting the blame on us. I think he misunderstood their directions from the beginning. How do I manage that, save face for my team, and not vilify my boss in the process? Well, Jack, could we go back to the very, very, very beginning of all of this? What part and at what time, Jack, did you actually ask what the expectations were and how we knew we had them when we had them? And what point did you ask the question, what does success look like for this project or for this work assignment? Right? I'm guessing you're probably going to tell me, well, I didn't actually ask those questions. Because when we get down to situations where the boss said, and you could have a boss that is unwilling to take any responsibility and they're just going to throw people under the bus because they're going to project and blame shift. Totally get that. That happens. Sucks, but it happens. And yes, I just said that on my podcast. It does. It sucks. However, more often than not, we don't actually ask the right questions up front to get the understanding of what is expected and to understand what resources we need. The great question you could have asked in the beginning is, so what resources to the team, what resources do we need to be successful? Have your boss in on those conversations. Okay. Because when you're having to go back to okay. And I want to say this, when you delivered it, let's say you did ask all of those questions, and let's say you really were clear and it was really well drawn out and spelled out for you on what this project looked like. Okay. What the assignments looked like. And then you got the execs are displeased with you. And so you went back to the drawing board again. What happened between that, when you got this is not what we asked for, to we went back to the drawing board again? What happened in between there? Because they're really in that place right there. After you got the door shut, this isn't what we wanted, go back to the drawing board. What questions did we ask? What clarifying questions did we ask? What resources did we ask for? What help did we ask for from our boss, or even from the execs, if given the opportunity to get clarification on exactly what is missing, what was missing, what didn't meet their expectation? That's the only way you're going to get clarity of what they really want. And then you ask the question, so what does success with this look like? What does the outcome look like for you? I hear your expectations, but I can't visualize what that looks like as an outcome. Can you tell me so we can make sure that we can meet it? Those are such easy questions to ask, and we forget. A lot of times we don't go into discovery mode. What we do is just go right into, I'm just going to get the job done. We go right into being taskmasters. Okay, got it. Cool. I'm going to go into being taskmaster. But we realize we only had half or a fourth of the information. We didn't have everything that we needed, but we didn't know that. And the boss didn't tell you because y'all are excited and eager to get after it. What are they doing? They're just like, cool, Jack's got it. I don't have to worry about it. And then the boss is like, well, Jack, I told you what we needed. You didn't ask me any questions. You said you understood it. So where's the fault line on that? It's a both and, because your boss really could have asked you more powerful questions as well. What resources do you need? What do you see the end project? Are you clear about what the expectation is? Tell me what you see that expectation is. Asking those kinds of questions, friends, are so powerful. So powerful, and we forget them. So save face with your team. You go back to the team and you say, hey, here's how we're going to save face in the future. Here's how let's talk about how we don't have this happen in the future, right? What list of questions can we come up now to ask, so that in the future, all we need to do is say, okay, let's pull out the questions to ask when we get a big assignment like this, because next year we're going to be planning for the next fiscal year. So what are the questions that we want to make sure that we ask? It's an after action review. You can do it with your team. And then when the project comes up, you have the list of questions to ask. That's not vilifying anyone. That's actually being good at your job, to be a good partner in the teaming, to ensure that the work that's being done is done to the expectations and the want of everyone. And there's going to be the times, Jack, where you're going to miss the mark. But the more preparation you put in up front, the better it's going to be on the back end. I hope that was helpful for you, Jack. Hey, listen, everyone. What a great conversation with these Q&A. I love doing question and answer. I wish I had you all on live with me, because that's fun. And guess what? In the new year, we're going to be doing that, where we actually have people calling in live with their questions and we get to role play these things. I am excited for the new year. I'm excited to share with you the characters in the sandbox, and really, so you can understand when you have someone who is that, complacent one, who is that negative Nelly, who's the one that goes in and hoards all of the resources so nobody has it, and what's the why behind that behavior. We're going to be getting into that in the sandbox in the coming year, because there are tools that I want you to use so that you can start to expose, and you can start to eradicate, and you can start to transform the behaviors that are no longer serving you on the team, in the workplace. So I can't wait for what's to come. I'm so glad you joined me today, and I will look forward to seeing you next year, 2024, in the Playing in the Sandbox. Make it a great day. Hey, thanks for coming into the Sandbox with me today. I have loved having you, and my hope is that you're leaving with new tools, tips, and strategies to navigate your personal leadership, your team leadership, and your next bold conversation. And hey, it would mean so much to me if you could do two things. One, share this episode with a friend or a colleague that you feel could really benefit from what we've shared in the Sandbox here today. And also, I want you to DM me with your questions. We've created a process where you can go into Instagram and send me a DM. You can go to LinkedIn and send me a DM, and send me your leadership question. What are you challenged with in communication in the Sandbox? Bring it to me so we can answer them in the coming year. Third-party affirmations go a long way in today's world economy, and I would be honored if you took the time to share the value that you gained from spending time in the Sandbox today with another person. Share this link, drop a comment, make sure that you subscribe so that you never miss an episode, because we're going to be diving into some fabulous content in the brand new year. Now, remember, friend, leadership is not something that you're born with. It's actually something that you grow into. And I want to acknowledge and celebrate and thank you for taking the time to grow into your next level of leadership in the Sandbox today. Make it a great day.